Hey everyone, I'm the Autoimmune Dietitian. My name is Annie Rubin, and welcome to my series where I cover all things related to autoimmune disease and nutrition. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Annie. I am a registered dietitian nutritionist, and I mainly work with adults struggling with a host of symptoms from underlying inflammatory and autoimmune conditions. Things that include pain, digestive issues, and fatigue, and just overall reduced quality of life. So in my work with my clients, I help them implement a personalized nutrition roadmap designed to improve mobility, concentration, and energy levels to help them live the lives that they should be living. So today we are talking about stress. Stress is one of the most common underlying triggers of autoimmune diseases and chronic diseases in general. In fact, several retrospective studies have reported that up to 80% of patients have uncommon emotional stress before the disease onset. So chronic and extremely acute stressful situations, including trauma or significant life stressors, can negatively impact the body and make it more susceptible to disease. So today I'm going to explain how stress can change your body's symptoms to cause your body to attack itself as it does in autoimmune diseases. So before I jump in, I just need to attach a disclaimer to this video that the information in today's talk is not the substitute for the diagnosis, treatment, or care of disease by a medical provider. This is for informational purposes only. So please consult your qualified health professional for any changes to your medical care. Okay, so let's talk about the research first. There was a really interesting study published in 2018 in the Journal of American Medical Association that looked at a large population and a sibling-matched cohort from a Swedish database. So they basically broke up all these patients into different groups. They had a group of patients who had already had a diagnosis of a stress-related disorder. Then they had a group of people who they matched by birth year and sex who did not have any stress-related issues. And then they actually took siblings from that stress-related group into a separate group. So they looked at everyone who had a stress-related disorder, people who didn't have a stress-related disorder, and then the siblings of the people who had a stress-related disorder. And they basically followed these groups from over a 10-year period. And they're looking for any diagnosis of an autoimmune disease. So, and also if the unexposed participant was diagnosed with a stress-related disorder, they would be moved into the stress group. So after 10 years, they found that the rate of autoimmune diagnosis was 9.1% for the stress-related group, only 6% in the unexposed group, and 6.5% for the sibling group. So there's a pretty significant jump between the 6 and the 9% for people who have a stress-related condition and developing autoimmune diseases. So that study was really interesting. So what does stress do to your body? So stress can throw off many of your body symptoms or systems. And one of the first things it does is it affects your Hpa axis, which is your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal axis. So your Hpa axis is a collection of glands that help regulate hormones related to stress and also your sex hormones. And it's a feedback loop. So it turns on when your body needs it, and then it turns off to help return everything back to normal. And one of the major hormones it regulates is cortisol. So cortisol is a stress hormone. So it's released when your body senses stress, and when the stress is over, cortisol production drops, and your body goes back to normal. However, when your body's in constant stress, you don't actually shut off the production of cortisol. So you're left with elevated levels of cortisol in your body that never get turned off. So what's really interesting is that cortisol is actually a really good hormone. In normal cases, it is anti-inflammatory, and it helps to regulate the immune response. However, when the body is chronically stressed and constantly pumping out cortisol, the immune system becomes desensitized to cortisol. So cortisol fails to control inflammation, and in turn, your body produces more inflammatory cytokines, which just leads to more inflammation. And we all know that inflammation is kind of that underlying nagging trigger of autoimmune diseases as well. So to make things worse, stress also decreases your body's white blood cells called lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are the cells that help fight off infection. So the less of these white blood cells you have floating around, the more susceptible your body is to infections. Lastly, stress also affects your gut, and not in a good way. So stress can trigger dysbiosis. A study done on mice showed that stress changed the intestinal bacteria And that intestinal bacteria that it was changed to actually stimulated your cells to attack its own body. So the stress actually caused the growth of bacteria that then encourages your body to attack itself, which is what we see in autoimmune diseases. The second thing that stress can trigger is leaky gut. So stress can increase intestinal permeability. And as I've said before, leaky gut is a hallmark sign and potential trigger of autoimmune diseases in and of itself. So when you have stress, you have more intestinal permeability, more things can sneak through your intestinal lining, but then you also have less white blood cells to attack those things. So your immune system really kind of takes a toll when you have a lot of stress in your life and in your body. All right, so how do you reduce stress? So let's say that stress contributed to your autoimmune disease. So now what should you do? Well, just because you're stressed doesn't mean you have to be a stressed out person forever. The first step is to identify the stressful things in your life. So I want you to write down the stressful things that are, trigger stress in your life on a piece of paper. Then I want you to look at the list, and for each stressor, write down 3 things you can do to better manage stress from that particular thing. So for instance, let's say your job is causing you a lot of stress. Is there a different role that you can focus on within your job or within your company that will be less stressful for you? If your manager is causing you stress, can you move to a different team? Or maybe it's time for a career change. As scary as that sounds, you may have to consider your health as something as just important as your job. So the second thing that you can do is to find some stress relieving tools to keep in your toolbox for when things get stressful. This could be deep breathing, it could be meditation, it could be using an inner balance trainer. If you haven't checked that out, definitely Google that and see what that is. Or just going for a walk outside, spending time in nature has actually been shown to reduce stress. So practice a few to see what really works well for you. Therapy is also another great option. There are several therapy approaches that work on stress, so it's up to you to find which one clicks for you. But if you go to Psychology Today, you can find a therapist in your area that specializes in your specific need and therapy modality. All right, so just to recap, today we focused on how stress can be a trigger for your autoimmune disease and a few ways that you can start tackling your stress. For those of you who would like more help managing your autoimmune disease or maybe digestive issues or just reducing inflammation in general, I would love to chat with you. I offer free calls. I call them my discovery calls to learn more about your goals. So you can go to my website, annierubin.com, to check that out. I also have a new freebie. It's called The Root Causes of Autoimmune Diseases. This booklet covers the top 5 common triggers of autoimmune disease, how you can test for them, and then next steps for developing your own treatment plan. And then lastly, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter. So I put out a lot of great information on managing inflammation with food and lifestyle. So try it. You can unsubscribe anytime. You will not hurt my feelings. So thank you again for joining me today. If you liked the video, please hit the subscribe button. These come out about every week. I'm the Autoimmune Dietitian. You can follow me on YouTube. You can follow me on Instagram, the Autoimmune Dietitian. I'm on Facebook, Annie Rubin Nutrition. So thank you so much, and catch me next week for another interesting link between food, autoimmune disease, and inflammation.